It's time to get black to basics with the Akko Jelly Blacks. First up, a sound test stock right out of the box. Put 60 seconds on the clock to tell you about the Akko Jelly Blacks. Linear switch, 3-pin, roughly smooth all the way down and back up the stroke. No tactile bump in there. Polycarbonate housing, palm stem with a cute little dust jacket. A little box. It's kind of like kale box switches. It protects it from the dust and makes it a tiny bit smoother to press in. But way more important, and the thing that actually sets this switch apart, would be the ginormous extended spring. It's not actually this big, by the way, but it's longer than a normal linear switch spring. Couple that with 50 G's of actuation force, and you get heavy, thick, resistance, amazing to press down, and you can actually tell when you type on these things, by the way. Now, before I come back with my final thoughts after typing on these bad boys for several days, I'll give you how it sounds and how it feels, because it's different than some of these other popular linear switches. But before that, let's hear these popular linear switches with a few more comparison sound tests. The ink blacks, maybe the Akko rose reds, and maybe the Milky Yellows, etc., etc. Hashtag sound test. Go. It's time for Pete's thoughts. Lots of great things to say about this. I only have one negative thing, which I'll save for the last. Overall recommendation. I like them. I like them way more than the Akko Rose Reds. I like them a fraction of a percent less than the ink blacks. I don't know why, but I think I would prefer the ink blacks. But again, it's like a tiny difference. I really like the way these feel and sound. Now, only two things of note. Number one, in terms of feel, it's slightly more like pronounced down and back up, as opposed to just like butter. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't make sense because that was dumb. It's just like you can actually feel it. It's a little bit more clacky, a little bit more like as opposed to just like very, very thick and smooth. It's a little bit more like pronunciation. I have no idea if any of those words make sense, but it's like I'm describing like fine wine or something, like tasting notes for these linear switches. They're still smooth. They're still buttery. They're still muted. I like all that stuff. It's just a tiny bit more like pronounced. And the last thing is the sound. It's slightly higher pitched. It's not like clicky and clacky by any means. It's still soft. It's still muted. The same as most of the good linear switches. It's just like slightly more specific and higher pitched. Again, if that makes any sense at all. I hope it does. And quite frankly, there's only one slightly negative thing, and I don't know if it's just the switches or not. It could not be. There's like a little bit of wobble. And I'm not talking about wobble between the upper housing and the bottom housing where you would film it. I'm talking about just like wobble into my plate on this keyboard. It was a little more than I thought. It was a little interesting. It's a 3-pin switch, and I have 5 pins. I got 5 holes over here. I would prefer a 5-pin switch for this keyboard right here, but usually it doesn't matter that much. There's a tiny bit of wobble. Again, I can't really hear it and feel it, but when I put them in, I noticed there's like a teeny tiny little bit there. Again, that's not a deal breaker. If you like the way these sound, you'd probably never even notice it. And it probably also just depends on your keyboard. This is just my experience with this one keyboard. And again, it's not the only switch that's ever done that, right? It's still a great switch. I'm just trying to find something negative to say about it. And that was it. They're still a great switch. I love the way they sound. They feel great. I like that there's a little bit more like pronunciation in the stroke, if you will. A little bit more than just like super butter, nothing but butter. It's like a little bit of, okay, I can feel when the keys are being pressed, even though there's no bump. I kind of like that about these. So, Akko Jelly Blacks, overall, Pete's opinion, I approve very much so, especially at the price point. They are nice and cheap. If you can find them, they're out a lot of places. I managed to get one off AliExpress. It took 6 weeks to get here, but there it is. Now they're here. And there's my review. Thanks for watching. Gel, yeah.